You see, the question isn't if reincarnation is real, but how many times have your soul been here? How many different lives have you lived? 5D Mystery School. Welcome back to 5D Mystery School. Let's get into it. So, if the past, present, and future are all happening at the same time, it is possible that our future selves has already created time travel and they have come back to influence decisions so that we won't make the same timeline again. So if our future selves comes back to influence decisions so that we won't live out the same timeline, then how does karma play into that? And here's my question about karma. Does our karma create the destiny for our next life, or does existing karma develop by the usage of free will? Is our current karma linked to choices made by our future self? The choices of our past affect our present. So then, is karma created by fate? Does karma create destiny? If that's the case, is our soul contract in our next life influenced by the choices that we're making in this life? So fate. Fate is the will or principle or determining cause by which things in general are believed to come to be as they are, or events to happen as they do. Destiny, something to which a person or thing is destined. Fortune, a predetermined course of events often held to be an irresistible power or agency. And free will, voluntary choice or decision. Freedom of humans to make choices that are not determined by prior causes or by divine intervention. So then, if the past, present, and future are all happening simultaneously, does free will exist, or are our paths destined? Is deja vu your present self remembering the future? Can fate and destiny coexist? Can free will and destiny coexist? I often hear from near-death experiences that their whole life flashes before their eyes and they see all the choices that they could have made differently in their lives, and they actually have a view from the other people's perspective of the lives that they affected and the decisions they made and how they affected other people's lives. So it's that life review for your soul to remember for people that actually do pass when you go into your next life in the wheel of reincarnation. And when you leave this physical shell, does your next life already have a destiny from the choices that you made if you have free will in this life? And since everything is coded, does that determine your DNA codes? You know, I've been seeing videos from ER nurses saying that they've seen hundreds of people pass, and when the person is passing, they see people in the room that the nurses can't see, and that person is there to usher them into the next life. Is that person a program to usher you into the white light, so therefore you go into the cycle of reincarnation? And does the simulation render somebody that you would trust, guaranteeing that you follow them into the next life? So then, our future selves could have figured out the code, this matrix, the simulation, and how this wheel of reincarnation works, and therefore they're coming back to the past, to our present. And so that's why when we see what we call ancient visitors like this, they look exactly like what we would say that NASA astronauts look like. And if they're coming back and influencing decisions, those ripples can in turn cause what we call Mandela effects. Mandela effects can also be a cause of different timelines in the multiverse, but that's a whole different video. We also would call Mandela effects a glitch in the matrix, proving that we are definitely living in a simulation that's running on a 24-hour time loop. And we are tricked into believing that there's 365 days, but really we're just living on a continuous time loop. That's how a simulation works. And deja vu can be your brain experiencing nonlinear time, so that way you can remember the future in a sense. And your intuition, in a sense, can just be directions from your future self, because your future self has already made the decisions that you are going to make. So your intuition is making sure that you stay on that timeline, and that would be the result of what we would call destiny. And the last thing I will say is this, because I could talk about this for days. We know that the stars move around Polaris, right? So the firmament rotates. The Earth doesn't rotate, the firmament rotates. And as mentioned in my lecture, Primeval Waters, you have asteroids, comets, meteors that go off at certain times when you have different luminary energies that we call planets in certain positions and certain degrees. So a zodiac wheel or a natal chart is these luminary energies at fixed positions on the firmament. And they're rotating. And when a person comes into this reality, it's a snapshot of where the planets were in that exact moment, and that becomes your natal chart. And this is why you can find out things about yourself by looking at your natal chart, because those luminary energies affect you because they have a magnetic pull on your body's magnetic field. And since they're rotating just like a clock, your birth date and your birth time are matrix entry time codes, and they correlate with the positions of the natal chart determining who you are, and that determines your destiny. And your birth location plays a huge part in that as well. So not only do you have binary code written in the fabric of nature, but you have binary code on your DNA. And so that's why you are coded. You are living by the code. Stick to the code. And your soul contract could very well have your entry codes, and that's where your destiny will come into play. And if we're given free will in our present lives, then that creates the code for your next incarnation. And that determines your matrix time entry code. Let me know what you guys think.
New York City is March 7th.
Well, partly it's taken to these very strange images that are behind your head right now. These are pictures of equations. I've been, for the last 15 years, trying to answer the kinds of questions that my colleagues here have been raising. And what I've come to understand is that there are these incredible pictures that contain all the information of a set of equations that are related to string theory. And it's even more bizarre than that, because when you then try to understand these pictures, you find out that buried in them are computer codes, just like the type that you find in a browser when you go surf the web. And so I'm left with the puzzle of trying to figure out whether I live in the matrix or not.
Wait, you're blowing my mind at this moment. So you're saying, are you saying your attempt to understand the fundamental operations of nature leads you to a set of equations that are indistinguishable from the equations that drive search engines and browsers on our computers?
That is correct. So,
wait, I have to just be silent for a minute here. So you're saying as you dig deeper, you find computer code writ in the fabric of the cosmos?
Into the equations that we want to use to describe the cosmos, yes.
Computer code.
Computer code, strings of bits of ones and zeros.
It's not just sort of resembles computer code. You're saying it is computer code.
It's not even just is computer code. It's a special kind of computer code that was invented by a scientist named Claude Shannon in the 1940s. That's what we find very, very deeply inside the equations that occur in string theory and in general in systems that we could say are supersymmetric.
We are all computers, and we power the simulation.
5D Mystery School.
The Matrix Code Part 2. Okay, so let's break down the simulation. You have the firmament on top, right? And then I've already explained the sun and the moon, the luminaries, they spin around. The sun powers the moon. As above, so below. So you have the waters above the firmament, and you have the waters beneath, which is our oceans. The moon and the sun work on wires of electricity. They're powered by the electromagnetic field. In the center, you have the main magnetic pole. You have Polaris on top, and this is where the aurora borealis happen. And you have a copper base that powers everything. And our oceans work as a huge conductor. And you have the luminaries, the sun and moon, that go in a 24-hour rotation, and the sun moves in a Fibonacci sequence spiral. It moves over the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, the equatorial line, and that gives us different seasons because you have the ice wall surrounding us, and the ice wall provides us with the fall and the winter, and that is brought in by the wind that comes from the center of our flat earth plane. So like I said in the previous video, imagine that you have the firmament that's rotating above us, and it works like a clock because clock is how they control us in this dimension by using time. So on a natal chart, you have houses. You have the 1st through the 12th house, and each house is separated by different points. Now look at this clock. From where it says 9 right here, you have your first house, second house, third house, fourth house, fifth house, and it goes around. And each house represents a different location on the map depending on where it is at that time. So when you incarnate here, your matrix code comes with a certain incarnation point depending on where the chart is spinning at that time. So in a way, your location is your destiny from your previous incarnation. And so you can say that this plane that we are occupying has a grand natal chart, and that is what the firmament spins on. And so different places on the map goes through different houses at different points, and that can tell you what that certain area is going to experience at that time depending on what house they're in. Like, for example, the US might be in its, like 10th house right now, or its second house, depending on where house is in, is going to let you know what that area is going to be experiencing because of the magnetic pull to the luminaries above us. So each point in the different houses, when they intersect, that's going to give you your latitude and your longitude lines, and they all intersect in the center at the 90th degree. That's going to be the magnetic North Pole. And so your matrix entry time code is going to correspond with a certain latitude or longitude line on this grand natal chart. And your location is tied to your destiny, your mission, your new mission in this incarnation. And not every person you see has a soul. Some people are matrix programs. That's right, some people are Matrix programs, just like Agent Smith in the Matrix films. We also call them NPCs, non-playable characters. And this is why you have some programs that are like a hive-like mind, and they attack anybody that is a glitch in the Matrix. In this simulation, this Matrix is ran by what I believe to be a super quantum computer, and I talked about the D-Wave quantum computer in previous lectures. And I'm not saying that the computer that runs this simulation is a block that looks like this, but I find it odd that this block figure is worshipped in a lot of different areas. And they call it the black cube of Saturn, and I've explained Saturn and how it correlates with the center of our flat earth plane, which is where the ancients say that the ether comes from, that what we call time has come from this center. And we are all batteries. We're literally powering this matrix, this simulation, to keep it running. Imagine, inside of your body, you have over 40 trillion different cells. All those cells are like little individual people, and they power you. They give off electricity. The protons and the electrons and the neutrons give off electricity, and they power your body, which gives your body its own electromagnetic field. So the same way the cells inside of your body powers the larger body that makes you run and you have your own magnetic field, we are all individual cells, and we are powering the bigger body, and that's what keeps this simulation, this matrix, running. As above, so below. You have your own electromagnetic field. We are powered by the bigger grand electromagnetic field. And that bigger electromagnetic field is what keeps this grand simulation running. The sun and the moon in rotation, the stars that are attached to the firmament spinning, everything. And the sun keeps our battery charged like wireless electricity. Just like when a battery is low, you charge it so it can go up again. The sun charges us and we go up again, powering the bigger simulation. So you might ask, how long has the simulation been running? Well, I would say for as long as you can imagine. Now remember, the ancient Egyptians did have depictions of spaceships, helicopters, airplanes. This is what they were seeing in the skies. So it's like the guardians of the simulation would step in at certain points to influence evolution. Almost like the plot in Marvel's Eternals. So just like you're made up of atoms that can carry a positive or negative charge, like I mentioned in previous lectures, we have the electromagnetic field that also has the protons and electrons that carry charges that powers the electromagnetic field. As above, so below. Many of our ancient predecessors has all figured out this simulation and how it correlates with the center of this flat earth plane. And they all figured out that we do indeed have a firmament above us. And in modern day times, we call it heaven. Okay, so I want to leave you with this. Right now, we are in the third dimension, the third density. So when you touch matter, the density of that matter is going to reflect the dimension that you are in. So in the third density, when we touch the matter is made up of atoms. Those atoms are made up of electrons and protons. And inside of the atom, you have the nucleus. And inside of the nucleus, when you try to study on a microscopic scale, you have what we call vibrating strings of energy. You can never find just solid matter. Some people would say that it's quarks or strings, and this is where the string theory come in. It's literally vibrations. We are all vibrations on a microscopic scale. So matter, what we call matter, the tangibility makes up this reality. And in our third dimension reality right now, a large portion of our reality is made up of radio waves. On the electromagnetic scale, we can see visible light, infrared light you're using when you use your remote to turn on the television. Microwaves, of course, in your house, but radio waves is what is used when you have your cell phone and you're talking to somebody else. You're sending a radio signal. And all of those signals have certain different frequencies. So just like you have a radio, when you change the station, you're just changing to a different frequency on the radio. As above, so below. The atoms inside of your body, they all have different vibrations. Your cells all have different vibrations. In turn, you're vibrating at a certain frequency. If you want to experience a different frequency, you have to go to a different vibration, which means you have to vibrate at a different, higher vibration to experience a higher frequency, a different reality. And so if you are vibrating on a different frequency on the inside, then your reality is going to reflect the vibrations and you're going to experience a new frequency, a new reality, as within, so without. And if majority of the populations that have souls and a consciousness knew this, then our entire reality can change faster than we can imagine. We would change the entire code of the entire matrix simulation. We would overrule the matrix programs that are here to make sure that does not happen. Individually, all of our DNA has a code. We would change the code of our DNA, which is powered by the sun, in turn unlocking more strands of our DNA, unlocking more individual abilities. Alright, so we're going to stop there for now. Thank you guys for watching. Take care of yourself. I love you. Peace. Alright, so if we are living in a simulation, the bigger question would be, which reality is the base or master reality? 5D Mystery School. Welcome back to 5D Mystery School. Let's get into it. So according to this astrophysicist, time travel already exists. And if it's happening in our present, then you can believe that the future reality has already mastered time travel. Here's one patent for time travel: practical time machine using dynamic, efficient, virtual, and real robots. As you can see, the first application was in 2007. And you can pause to read a little bit more information about this. But a method for time travel which allows an object or a group of objects to travel into the space or the future, as well as a method to cut objects from the past or future and paste them to the current environment. The present invention, called the practical time machine, requires teams of super intelligent robots that work together in the virtual world and the real world to generate a perfect timeline of planet Earth. Let that sink in for a second. Here's another patent: time machine device and methods thereof. And you can see that the first application was in 2010. This was by the Huffington Post. Time travel patents. Here are 4 people who claim to have invented real-life time machines. That was in 2014. So you can see the buildup is here and it's happening slowly but steady. Here's another patent for time machine propulsion, and that was done in 2012. And one more, time machine software. This was done in 2007. So as mentioned in my Exit the Matrix, The Sims lecture, the ancients believed that the ether and time has spanned from the center of our reality. And also mentioned in that lecture, Saturn is also known as Chronos, which is also known as Father Time. And Chronos, or Father Time eating babies, is just a metaphor for time eating away at you the moment that you were born. Because one thing is for certain, you're born to die. You're going to come in as a baby, but you're going to leave in a casket some way or another. So time literally eats away at you. So since our reality is controlled by time and you can find code written in the universe and our bodies is literally made up of code, then that would means that time is a certain type of code, or at least what we perceive time to be, you know, like for example, the rotation of the sun and the moon. So essentially time travel would just be rewriting code. So the same way you can code a computer game in virtual reality, you can code a simulated reality. So I want you to think about this. The essence of our reality is made up of what? Particles and subatomic particles, and quarks and vibrating strings, etc. So if that's the foundation of our reality, and scientists have found binary code embedded into our reality, that means that these particles and subatomic particles could actually be computer code. So given that our DNA is literally code, could this mean that life could be produced and reproduced autonomously, digitally, like a fleshy body composed of code, but able to bring in new life autonomously by mating with other people and meshing with their codes? And then when you mesh with somebody else's code, you produce a new being, and then their code is the mixture of your code and whoever's code you mix with. Like your codes literally create the fleshy coded body, and then the soul comes in depending on their matrix entry time codes, enter into the fetus, and then you produce that body with that's holding a soul inside of it. And it's already being proven in modern day times that this process can be done synthetically. This comes from CNN World. A synthetic embryo made without sperm or egg could lead to infertility treatments. And to take it one step further to show you how this can all be coded, that you can design the fetus that you're bringing in, they have these called designer babies. A designer baby is an embryo that has been genetically modified or gene edited for the sake of producing a child with specific traits. In some cases, unfavorable characteristics or bad traits like genetic disease may be removed, or favorable traits like enhanced intelligence or strength might be added. Meaning that your baby that you're bringing in is literally coded to your liking, to your specifications. So if you have souls that's stuck in a reincarnation loop, and you have something like this as the basis for bringing those souls back into that loop, and you have people like us that are literally just coded by our DNA, then that can be a foundation for a real world simulation. Like a real life Westworld. Here's the New York Post. I posted this like last year, but world's first living robots can now reproduce. Read that again. They were calling them xenobots. They can reproduce. And essentially what we perceive as time is what could be controlling the simulation, the 24-hour loop. And then the simulations you create can create new simulations. Those simulations can create new simulations. So it's like, what's the based reality? Because virtual reality is going to evolve to the point where it involves all of your senses, and it's going to be hard to distinguish that reality from what we call our real reality. And if you're in virtual reality that involves your senses, including touch, then that's going to bring back into the question matter. The electrons and protons and neutrons that make up the atoms, and then inside you have the vibrating strings. How do you discern the difference? Like, we're already getting to the point where some of these games, some of these virtual reality games, it's kind of hard to discern the difference between our reality and virtual reality. But let me show you better than I can tell you. Roll the footage. That clip is from @Web3D on TikTok. That was a video game. So if you take that but times 1,000 and create a real world simulation like Westworld, you can create humans to put in that simulation to reproduce autonomously, then you have a real world simulation. Like I mentioned in another video, no disrespect to anybody, but it's believed that white people were made in a lab using a pig, monkey, dog, and a rat by a scientist named Yakub. And that's why sometimes when they get wet, you have like a wet dog smell.
How I don't smell like wet dog. I smell good. Don't just...
Alright, so I've just been out biking for sort of 10 to 20 minutes with wet hair because it's summer now, apparently, and I came back and my hair smells like wet dog, and I don't know why this happens. I've heard it only happens to white people, and I'm pretty sure it's true because I know a lot of white people that smell like this after being outside the entire day. There's something in our hair and in the city air that does this. It just smells like wet dogs.
Don't get mad at me. I've seen a white woman on TikTok also say the same thing. It's a certain gene that you guys have. And again, no disrespect. But I'm just saying this to say that you can create humans to put in a real world simulation. Black people are also walking around in these bodies that are coded. These bodies don't belong to us. We just have souls that come into these bodies. So essentially, in some way or another, everybody has a body that's created and coded to fit this third density, third dimension reality. So I want to leave you with this. As mentioned before, and many ancient civilizations have figured out the same thing. At the center of this flat earth plane, you have the main magnetic pole. You have Polaris on top that has the magnetic pull to it. Then you have the stars that spin around it. And since this reality has a cap, has a boundary, which is known as the firmament, when you hear them speak of luminaries in outer space, it's not quite so. So when you hear them speak about Saturn's North Pole, they're talking about this North Pole. In the center, you have the polar vortex, as I went over in previous lectures. So if time comes from the center, you have the stars spinning around Father Time, the black sun in the center. As above, so below, you have the same things that take place in our reality. So as you stare at this dense compilation of particles and photons known as a video, I ask you this question. Are we living in a simulation? You decide.
"5D Mystery School."